Learner-Centered Teaching in the Middle School Classroom, a presentation by Melissa. Melissa is a middle school wellness and fitness teacher at the Dayton Regional STEM School, an inquiry and project-based learning school. In this presentation is an overview of the components necessary to make middle school classroom more student-centered, practical ideas for implementing the components, and project examples that embody the learner-centered model. The objectives of this presentation are that participants will be able to identify the components of learner-centered teaching and will be able to design lessons and activities that incorporate the components by the end of the presentation. Learner-centered teaching is a brain-based educational model that moves the onus of work from the teacher to the student. Research shows, as stated by Doyle, that true learning is a change in the neurons of the brain. For this change in the neurons to occur, the student must be an active participant in the learning. This active status is a change from the traditional lecture and test model that exists in many schools today. In learner-centered teaching, teachers act as the planners and facilitators of the classroom, while the students engage in the work. The work then must be authentic, meaningful, and based in the real world. This means that the technology and resources are current and align with professionals in the discipline, that students work in groups or partnerships, and are held accountable for high-quality work that has a place outside of the classroom. It also means that students work through useful problems that do not have just one right answer, and are accomplished in a cross-curricular integrated manner. Many of these same elements can be seen in project-based learning. This presentation will utilize examples from the project-based learning model, as it is wholly student-centered. Success in the learner-centered classroom begins with engaging students so that they want to do the work. This can be accomplished in several ways. Students must be moved into the framework of leading their own learning. To do this, educators must make connections to the students' own lives and to their prior knowledge and experiences. What skills will a student need when they leave middle school? What skills are necessary for success in college and career? These are the skills that a learner-centered environment focuses on. Students must be made aware of these connections. Doyle equates learner-centered teaching with the apprenticeship model of past generations. When students were to truly learn a trade, they were immersed in it, and they practiced it in many ways over time. This is true of active learning as well. One powerful way to engage students in the learning process is to give voice and choice in the classroom. There are many ways that students can be given a voice in what happens in their learning. This begins, however, before the learning takes place. Students can be given a say in the rules and policies of the class, such as the late work policy and whether or not movement around the room during class is allowed. Students can also give input into organizational issues such as the due dates for assignments, the selection of group members, and discussion or group work guidelines. While working in the content, students can be given choices about the products that are created in a project, the rubric used to assess a project, and the project timeline. Content or curricular choices can be difficult to give to middle school students, but can net the most benefit. When students feel as though they are valued members of the class community, they will engage in the learning. Another way to engage students in the learning is through the use of a driving question. Driving questions, as described by Wiseman, Schwartz, and Fortis, are written in everyday language to provoke the students to think about the content, but they cannot be solved immediately. The driving question does not have one right answer and requires students to ask smaller questions. In asking these smaller questions, they must analyze and synthesize information in an effort to answer the driving question. Driving questions give a sense of purpose to the work or the project, according to Larmer and Mergendoller. Examples that have been used in the middle school classroom include: how can I improve my health-related fitness? How do I create an engaging storybook to advocate for younger students' health? How can we make three-dimensional models that help other students understand plate tectonics better? How can we make history and historical fiction more fun, exciting, and accessible to junior high students? How can we promote appropriate use of technology by teenagers in our area? How do the choices we make affect what is going on inside our body? Each of these questions then leads students through their investigation of the content concepts. In an ideal learner-centered situation, the driving question will lead the students in solving a real-world problem or issue, not just one that is content-driven. Another hallmark of the student-centered classroom is utilization of drafting and revision. High-quality work requires several iterations and refinement before it is complete. This requires a change in the mindset of the students and teachers. For so many years, every worksheet students completed was a final draft, regardless of quality or correctness, because it had to be turned in so the class could move on to the next item. As Berger states, purposefully planning for drafts changes the classroom from one of pressure to turn in enough work to pressure to produce work that is well done and has value. Revisions can also apply to work that is not a final product, but to tests or quizzes too. The goal of education is to facilitate acquisition and long-term retention of knowledge. If a test or quiz shows that a student did not master the concepts, then further investigation or instruction should occur. Students can then revise the assessment to demonstrate their increased understanding. In some instances, students can also evaluate where their thinking or problem solving was incorrect originally, requiring metacognition as well. Within the drafting process is the critical element of feedback and critique. Feedback and critique is the means by which rough work is refined into high-quality work. This can include both peer and teacher feedback. There are, of course, rules to giving quality feedback. Any type of critique should be kind, helpful, and specific so that the student can truly learn from it. The feedback should also focus on the goal or goals of the work, not the person who created it, according to Berger. It can also be focused on the rubric that will be used to assess the final product. Critique can be given in a gallery walk style, where all students' work is displayed and students can select any work that they would like to give feedback to in a more informal, brief setting. Or it can be a more formal process where students spend a significant amount of time dissecting and giving feedback to many aspects of one piece of work. Critique is used throughout a project to continually refine work. No matter the type of critique or the goals of the assignment or project, students must be taught to accept critique just as they must be taught to give quality feedback. In the end, however, the resulting high-quality work is definitely worth the time and effort that critique requires. Another tool in the learner-centered toolbox is that of making student work public. This is the final piece in the real-world, authentic nature of student-centered education. According to Larmer and Morgendoler and Berger, it also helps students in their drive to produce high-quality work. Imagine the difference in working on a piece that will be graded and then given back to be taken home, versus a piece that will be displayed in a museum or given to members of the work's target audience. Making the work public ups the ante, so to speak. There are many authentic audiences for student work. A younger group of students in the school, a group of professionals in the field of study, museum goers, hospital or doctor's office patients, or government offices. Any destination or group of people where the work has an authentic connection or real-world application is a possibility. In the rest of this presentation, I will share 3 middle school projects from the Dayton Regional STEM School that encompass all of the components of learner-centered teaching that have been discussed so far. The 6th grade Ancient Chinese Dynasty Quilt Project. This project was integrated in social studies, math, and STEM foundations. The driving question for the 7-week project was, how can we teach the contributions of ancient Chinese civilizations to a student who is not in school? Students were initially engaged with this project because a classmate had been hospitalized for several months during the early part of the school year. Students began to wonder how chronically hospitalized students get their schoolwork done. This quilt became their answer. Within the project, students mastered contributions and components of ancient Chinese dynasties in the social studies curriculum, scale and measurement skills in the math curriculum, and became adept at the skills of sewing and design in STEM foundations. Students created their own quilt square to illustrate one societal aspect of a Chinese dynasty. They had voice and choice in its design, color palette, and message. They also had to write an explanation of their quilt square that went into the quilt guide that accompanied the quilt, allowing them to demonstrate their content knowledge. Through this project, students did between 3 and 4 sketches before pinning and sewing their quilt square, receiving instruction and feedback from a local quilting guild. When completed, the quilt was donated to Dayton Children's Hospital Hematology and Oncology Department. The 7th grade Wellness Storybook Project. This project is integrated in wellness and fitness, language arts, and STEM foundations. The driving question for the project is, how can I create an engaging storybook to advocate for the health of 3rd through 5th graders? Students are given voice and choice in the topic and the narrative structure of the book, as well as the art medium used to create the illustrations. The story goes through 3 to 5 drafts, receiving teacher and peer feedback on content, dialogue, and structure each time, while the illustrations must be refined and revised until they are of a quality worthy of publishing, sometimes up to 5 or 6 revisions. When the books have been completed, students must then find an appropriate place to receive the book so that their audience can access it. Students, not teachers, call and email these appropriate organizations to offer the book. In the past 3 years, the storybooks have been accepted by museums, libraries, recreation centers, schools, shelters, and local hospitals, almost anywhere there is a 3rd through 5th grader in the greater Dayton area. The 7th grade digital portfolio and presentation. This year-long project in 7th grade is the creation and presentation of the student's own digital portfolio. The driving questions of the portfolio are, how do I prove that I have learned this year? How do I communicate my growth using evidence? How do I build a professional website? How do I communicate information in a visually pleasing way? And how do I speak confidently in front of a group of professionals? Every content area and the DRSS qualities, communication, collaboration, creativity, persistence, and inquiry are represented in the portfolio, as well as the student's greatest growth for the year. The students learn reflection, documentation, and web design skills as they build their portfolio. Students must support their claims of growth in each content area with evidence, physical artifacts, and reasoning. The design of the website, the learning endeavors that are explained, and the artifacts that support the endeavors are all up to the individual student. Reflections are completed throughout the school year in each content area, allowing students to continually grow in their reflection skills as well as their writing. Reflections and web pages receive critique and feedback from peers in 6th, 7th, and 8th grades, as well as from teachers in each content area. Once the portfolio is complete, students present it to an audience of peers and local business, government, and education partners. It is certainly a real-world experience that students are able to build on each year as they add to their portfolio. By the end of their senior year, students have a comprehensive website to demonstrate their accomplishments and skills. In summary, participants in this workshop should be able to identify the main components of learner-centered teaching that were reviewed today. These include engaging students through voice and choice, and the use of driving questions. Learner-centered teaching also utilizes the drafting process and critique and revision so that students produce work that is of high quality. Learner-centered teaching practices also make student work public through an authentic audience. The work lives on outside of the classroom. Finally, utilizing the examples of projects given in the presentation, participants should be able to design lessons or activities for their own middle school classroom that incorporate the student-centered components.